All right, let's wrap things up with tight ends. This is where you're going to get the hottest take out of the Wolf. But, honestly, pretty hot take out of Mo as well. This is going to be interesting. Before we do that, let's talk 2023 and who they picked at tight end. This is the only one where Mo has a little bit of egg on his face. Wolf, you picked Kyle Pitts, who the aforementioned Kyle Pitts. Kind of don't even really think you deserve credit for this. This is just kind of like shooting ducks in a barrel. What is
he was going top 6 in fantasy? I definitely deserve credit for this.
Right, but you and I both knew how stupid that was.
Yeah,
we were just like, that's moronic. This guy. How many years are we going to be like, this is the year for Kyle Pitts? Anyway, you got it right. I think it's, at least in my head, it was not a super gutsy pick because it seemed obvious. I'd seen that he just had like a tattoo on his forehead that said, "I'm going to be a bust." And he was again. Mo picked George Kittle. He wasn't really a bust.
No, he was just George Kittle doing George Kittle things. We had a good debate on that one, and I'll definitely take the W there. I said on victory lap when we got back to this show the next year, and just want to take that quick little jaunt around real quick. That was terrible. I will say truth. I actually could get down with Kyle Pitts this year.
Stop.
I know. I was tempted to do him as the bust again just for like old time's sake, but I kind of buy the
where's he going right
now? Offense.
Where's he going right now?
Fifth, sixth round.
If he doesn't do it,
fifth or sixth round.
There's no way I'm taking that guy in the 5th or 6th round. No way.
For the record, I don't either, just because I go George Kittle instead. I'd rather have George Kittle. It's easy for me. So I don't really have much Kyle Pitts, but I wouldn't be shocked if like this is the year he does actually break out. He's got everything in his path. If he doesn't do it this year, then the dream is definitely over.
You'd rather take George Kittle, who is good, over Kyle Pitts, who is bad, at the same. That's right. So remember after Josh Gordon came back from weed suspension, and every year for like 5 years we were like, oh yeah, this is it.
He's coming back, baby.
Yeah, every time we would get so excited, he'd play like 2 games and then he'd get suspended or whatever.
Yeah.
How long are we going to do this for Kyle Pitts? Anyway, he's not even one of you guys' picks this year.
Yeah.
I'm just
At
all
least 1 more year we're going to do it.
Okay. I'm just all lathered up about it now. All right. 2024 picks. The Wolf. Talk about coming off the top rope. Both of you guys. The Wolf is picking Sam LaPorta, everybody's darling at tight end. He finished 1 last year, right?
Yes, he did.
And Mo with TJ Hockenson. That's a kind of hot take too. What's going on? Defend yourself.
Yeah, so I will just say right from the jump, not to even make us a hedge, like I have LaPorta as my tight end 2 just behind Travis Kelce in a tier together. I believe in his fantasy upside. I think he's going to have a great year. Would not surprise me at all if he goes back-to-back as the tight end 1. This is just like Mo's argument for Pat Mahomes last year being a bust, where I do not see why Sam LaPorta is going 20-plus picks above the tight end 3 right now. The tight end 4 right now going pick 50 in Mark Andrews. I think that gap is way too wide. So while I love Sam LaPorta as a player, I just do not see. Last year, 11.5 fantasy points per game, very solid. Mark Andrews, 11.3. Literally a 0.2 difference in points per game, but a difference of 23 total picks. And where you take LaPorta, you're now passing up on some of those receivers we talked about that we love. Deebo Samuel, Nico Collins, Drake London. Maybe you want to take that early stab at Josh Allen and get the most elite of elite quarterbacks. You want to take a onesie in that spot? Make it the quarterback who's been the number 1 player in fantasy in historically a top 10 all-time performance in 4 straight years. Like, that is wild. Why not go for that instead of a tight end who might be 0.5 points better than a guy that's going 30 picks later? Again, love LaPorta. I think he's a phenomenal player. Could he take a step forward? Rookie's the hardest position to translate is tight end, and he did that as a rookie. Like, that is very impressive. But then I also look at his situation. Amon-Ra St. Brown, always going to be the target vacuum there. J-Mo Williams is apparently having a phenomenal camp, whether you buy it or not. Looks like he is taking another step. If you don't believe in him, well, Jahmyr Gibbs is here playing in the slot and taking another step as a pass catcher, a guy they want to use like Christian McCaffrey, according to the latest reports. So all of that to say is like, yeah, LaPorta's in a great offense, going to have some huge games, but it's just not a path, a runway to really – I can't see him getting significantly better than last year. Now, if he gives you what he gave you last year, great. But why would I take that over Trey McBride, who's going 27 picks later?
I'd way rather have Trey McBride.
Yeah, honestly, maybe straight up. But like, okay, I'd probably have LaPorta above him, but Trey McBride at pick 50, who actually as a starter had 11.7 points per game, which was more than Sam LaPorta. That's really the argument here. It's not that I don't like LaPorta. It's that I think that is a brutal pick to make because there's so many good players. Again, receivers, if you want to go Achane there, Devon Achane, the guy that thinks going to break fantasy, he goes after Sam LaPorta. Go running backs, receivers, get your elite quarterback onesie, and then look at your tight ends in round 5 and pick a McBride, pick an Andrews, hell, pick a Kincaid, the number 1 potential option for Josh Allen. Right? Kittle's going at pick 61. All those guys are right around LaPorta. And so, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but just what you're gaining for the amount you have to pay is significantly not worth it. I do not see LaPorta paying off that price with the opportunity cost that's gonna force you to take on. Whereas the round 5 guys that you're passing up on, we just talked about George Pickens. Those are the guys that are going in round 5. Okay, easy fade, easy to get a tight end in that range. Not so easy to fade the guys that LaPorta's going around.
So just to be clear, when I said I'd way rather have McBride, I was talking about for the price.
Yes. Okay.
I do probably like LaPorta slightly more than McBride, but not a ton more. I love McBride. And I mean, You're talking about a difference of like several rounds. I would certainly much rather have someone like him than LaPorta. It's funny. People get really good. They come in as the one, like we saw with Mahomes and everything else. People get really weird about it. All of a sudden, their value just gets blown up to a point where it just doesn't even make any sense anymore. So, yeah, I guess he'd be a pass for me at that cost as well.
What is interesting, Chris, and I know you do auction drafts too. LaPorta in auctions is going for like 17, 16. Like, I'll take him there because then McBride's going like 14, 13. But that just kind of illustrates the point. Like in a snake draft, a second rounder, a late second rounder, early third rounder, that should be like a $35, $40 player.
Absolutely.
But he's going 17, 18. So, like, you just like look at the two different formats, and it kind of helps illustrate like this gap makes no sense right now in snake draft price. Take him in auction at 17, sure, all day. Sure. But that's where he should be priced, not as a $35 player, and he's not being priced that way, appropriately so.
I'm a buyer in an auction at 17 or even 20, but for the numbers you're talking about, we're in total lockstep on that. Mo, TJ Hockenson.
I gotta pile onto this Sam LaPorta real quick. I would have made the case for LaPorta if Wolf didn't.
Okay.
It's almost as if people just automatically assume that the last year's tight end 1 is now worth like a second round pick or like a pick at the 2-3 turn. We have to understand that this is not the kind of performance out of Sam LaPorta that we were getting out of like the Kelce's and the Andrews. And I know Kelce at his peak was a first round pick and he was averaging like 20 points a game. But last year, LaPorta 14.1 points per game. And in the years that Andrews and Kelce were the non-nuclear Kelce years, they were performing at like 17 points per game. It was a significant step up. And even in those years, like their following year ADP was in the same spot or even later, like late round 2 or early round 3. So it's basically just like people are saying, oh, yep, this guy tight end 1, we're going to plop him right at the end of round 2, even though he was not performing even anywhere near the levels. And I think you kind of hit on it pretty well, but I think this guy's ceiling is pretty capped in terms of just because Amon-Ra St. Brown is the clear number 1 in this offense. He's the target hog. We expect some growth and some emergence out of some secondary pass catchers. And you didn't really harp on it. 10 touchdowns last season, just exceeded touchdown expectations by a pretty wide margin. So this guy is going to disappoint. Like maybe he still finishes as the tight end 1, but a late second round pick, give me a break. It's a joke. But people just aren't thinking this through.
Excellent point. I agree.
Yeah. Moving on to my guy here, it is TJ Hockenson. And this one is pretty cut and dry for me. It's really, really straightforward. TJ Hockenson is coming off a multi-ligament ACL tear, or multi-ligament knee tear rather. He tore his ACL and MCL on Christmas Eve last year, and that is it's just such a different injury from a traditional ACL tear, a clean ACL tear, as you'll often hear it. It prolongs the recovery period, and it makes players look significantly worse when they hit the field once again. You think back to Javonte Williams last year, just like how much of a shell of his former self he looked like last year when he came back from that multi-ligament tear. And I know running back's a little bit different, or significantly different rather, than it is for tight ends, but just to kind of give you an idea of what a multi-ligament tear can do to a player. But just in terms of the recovery line, just performance aside, just in terms of the recovery timeline, TJ Hockenson may have had this injury on Christmas Eve, but he didn't have his surgery until the end of January 29th to be exact. And these typical multi-ligament tears, it usually takes 10 months for a guy to return. The 10-month mark puts him at week 12 of this season. That is pushing the fantasy playoffs. And I know that there's been some reports that he's a little bit ahead of schedule, but I think a conservative, a rather liberal expectation would be somewhere around week 10. And even then, that's well over half of the fantasy season. So if you're drafting this guy as a fringe starter, he's off the board as the tight end 13. So if you're drafting him as the tight end 13, you're hoping that this guy has a moderately large impact on your lineup, but who knows what it's going to be if he's not even on the field until week 12. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, you're hoping that you're going to get him for your playoff push. But if you're spending a 10th round pick on TJ Hockenson and he's not hitting your lineup until week 12 or week 13, like you might be out of the playoff contention by that point. It might not even matter whatsoever. And that doesn't even consider the fact that this offense, it might take a step back with Sam Darnold under center.
Oh,
We don't know what kind of
It definitely will.
yeah. We don't know what kind of player he's going to look like when he returns, like just in terms of his own performance as an individual. So this is all just setting up to be just a guy that you stash on your IR slot, and he might not even matter for your fantasy lineup the entire season because he's not back until week 10, 11, 12. So just easy fade for me as a fringe starter in these leagues. Like, I don't know what you're doing drafting TJ Hockenson unless, like, I don't know. I can't really think of a scenario where I would be interested. Like, maybe if I've locked down like a mid-tier tight end one, like a Bowers or a Ferguson, perhaps. Like, and then if he slides maybe a bunch, but there's going to be that one guy in your league who's like, oh my God, TJ Hawkinson's here in round 10. Like, how has he not been drafted yet? And not understanding that it's very realistic that this guy is not available until week 12.
It's all. I mean, you could also see some guy in your auction draft being like TJ Hockenson for $10. Like, I'm in. Right? It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen just because of the name. Your argument is compelling. Also, I think we should possibly make shirts or bumper stickers or something that say, it's possible the offense could struggle under Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
very possible.
No, I mean, there's a chance. There's a puncher's chance.
A small chance. You do look at it, and you also see, though, that the Vikings, even with Kirk Cousins out for well over half the year, 9 games of Jaron Hall, Nick Mullins, whoever else, Josh Dobbs, for as long as he played, they still led the league in passing yards, which is crazy. Like, I am a big believer in Kevin O'Connell, but I'm fully with you, Mo, in terms of like this injury timeline. It seems like 10 weeks is like a best case. And then is he really himself? How long is he getting his legs under him for that period? And then there also is the risk of, like, if they are knocked out, if this team does completely implode under Darnold and they don't have any playoff contention, there's a chance that Hockenson is just not even, you don't see him all year. Like, why you put him out here, risk it, let's let him get, fully get healthy. Maybe they give him a couple tryout games to get contact and test the knee, but not really actually play him type of situation. That's certainly in the range of outcomes. It's a little different in redraft where there are like IR spots and, you can stash him without hurting your bench. But if he's eating up bench space, and even then, like, an IR spot's valuable. If somebody gets hurt in week 1, week 2, to be able to stash them and not have to drop somebody or burn a roster spot, it's a lot easier to stomach a draft injured guy in your IR spot if you know they're going to be back like week 5, 6. But yeah, week 10 is the optimistic outlook. It's a tough sell in round 10 where there's still really interesting players. Jaden Daniels, one of our favorite quarterbacks, often goes around 9-10. Like, Why bother with TJ Hockenson? I'm with you there.
Great arguments today, guys. And I think this is actually going to be a really good podcast.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.